Let's get started with President Trump and his efforts to freeze federal funding. Trump's mission to cut government spending became very clear this week when the White House offered a buyout to roughly 2 million federal workers and an order to freeze aid. The abrupt stoppage on federal grants and loans announced Monday created confusion throughout the government. So yesterday, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, sent a memo clarifying that programs such as Medicaid, food stamps, Head Start, and Pell Grants would not be part of the pause. But today, the White House rescinded the federal aid freeze after the administration received a flood of calls from lawmakers and state officials with questions on how it would impact their home states. Here's part of the statement from the Office of Management and Budget, quote, OMB Memorandum M2513 is rescinded. If you have questions about implementing the president's executive orders, please contact your agency general counsel, end quote. If the freeze had not been rescinded, it would have essentially set up a long brewing legal battle over the core constitutional principle that says Congress gets to decide how to spend taxpayer money. Legally, these arguments would eventually have made their way up to the Supreme Court, where some legal experts believe Trump could be in for an uphill battle. Meanwhile, a federal judge had temporarily blocked part of the administration's plans to freeze the federal aid. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get one thing straight. All of us should have a heightened level of sensitivity for the desolate and the disenfranchised amongst us. If you are poor and impoverished, or you are old, we need to be looking out for those folks first. People got to eat, they got to survive, got to have a roof over their head, got to have clothes on their back, food on their table, some heat, can't freeze to death in certain parts of this country, particularly how vicious these winters have been. And if you're old and you put in your time and you paid your taxes and you got Social Security and stuff out there, and that's not enough to live on, we got to help them too. So nobody's advocating for anything otherwise. When the Trump administration spoke up and they clarified that Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security wasn't being compromised and stuff like that, I believe them. Having said all of that, how they've looked over the last few days, dare I say the word inept might apply? They look a bit confused at the very, very least. I mean, you have situations where other Republicans had to step in and say, wait a minute, this is a bit chaotic. This is not the way to go. It would take a lot in order to continue to move with fluidity and not disrupt our entire apparatus when it comes to federal funding as it pertains to Medicare and Social Security and things of that nature. So that's something that's going to be a blemish on Trump's resume, no question about it, because he's going to come across as somebody who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. That's what they're going to say. How true that is, we don't know. But it's clearly something that the left is going to say. Here's what I like about it. What I like about it is that, go ahead, Democrats, attack that all day. Finally, you're attacking something substantive. Finally. Because that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. If he were to go along with his federal freeze and that disrupted so many American lives, that would have been problematic. When you speak up on those issues, those are the Democrats that we remember. Those are the Democrats we voted for. Those are the Democrats we can support. That's what you do. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on here, and we got to understand something. Trump deserves heat for this, for how discombobulated and somewhat disorganized this appeared to be. But he doesn't deserve it about everything. I'm just looking at some of the decisions that he has made and some of the things that he has taken heat for. If you have illegal immigrants in the country, the more you have, the more some have to be taken care of. And how are you going to take care of them? Through taxpayer dollars. And when you're complaining about being able to help the desolate and the disenfranchised amongst us, how can you justify supporting folks who aren't American citizens ahead of those who are? You can't do it. That's the argument for the right. Why do you think he's able to get away with America first during his first term? Why do you think he's able to get away with slogans like "Make America Great Again"? Because once upon a time, the belief was it was America first. When he threatened Colombia with tariffs, when they weren't willing to take a military plane with immigrants on it being returned to Colombia, and he had to get on the phone with Mr. Petro, the head of Colombia. What do you think happened there? He threatened to smack 25% tariffs on them. Threatened to elevate it to 50%. Why do you think he did that? Why do you think the president changed his mind? For Colombia, why do you think he changed his mind? Because what Trump said is, we being pinched. It's time y'all get pinched too. What do you think he's talking about when he's talking to Canada? What do you think he's talking about when he's talking about Mexico? What do you think he's talking about when he's talking about China? He's saying, we getting hosed, we're getting pinched, we're suffering. Why should you live pretty? So you're not going to get folks to disagree with him on everything, because the left took it to a different place. When you're talking about identity politics, when you're talking about woke culture, when you're talking about transgender, what do you think's going to happen? That ain't issues that affect the everyday lives and the pocketbooks of the average American. But if you let 12 to 14 million immigrants cross the border illegally, and you're giving out $53 million prepaid credit cards in the city of New York, and you're spending billions of dollars as a state like California, what do you think people are going to complain about? Because they're going to look at it as a direct assault on their wallet, which is a direct assault on their livelihood and their quality of life. And they're going to say, wait a minute, what's going on? What does that have to do with the conversation? It's Trump. What is he doing? Offering buyouts to 2 million federal employees. Everybody, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, that might be excessive. It might be too much. But guess what? The idea ain't that damn bad. Why? Because he's already telling you, we're downsizing this government. Y'all gonna lose some jobs now. The overhead is too steep. We got to downsize. So we're gonna let you go. If you accept the buyout, you'll probably get about 8 months' pay. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. And you best believe, let me be very clear, some of them better take it, because they're going to get cut anyway. If I tell you, yo, Griff, what's up? Yo, Galen, what's up? Sherry, what's up? Izzo, H to the Izzo, what's up, bro? If I tell you, look, man, I'm going to let you go right now, but you got 8 months' pay coming your way. If you don't take it, I might let you go, I might not. It might be in 3 months, 6 months, or a year, or 2 years. Or it might be next week. What you going to do? All of a sudden, see, we got to bring it where the goats can get it, as the late, great Joe Madison would say on Urban View Radio. You got to put it where the goats can get it. That's the analogy. That's a real-life analogy. Yo, Galen, what's up? 8 months' pay. Or I can let you go at my discretion. I might not. It might be soon, it might be later. I don't know. But you might be gone. You see where I'm going at, ladies and gentlemen? That's what he's talking about here. We got a whole bunch of people out here complaining about everything, complaining about the buyouts. He's clearly coming to downsize government. Why do you think Doge exists? That Vivek Ramaswamy walked away from, but that Elon Musk is still overseeing. Once again, this is the press secretary for the presidency, the White House. This is not a recession. This is not a rescission of the federal funding freeze. It is simply a rescission of the OMB memo. Why? To end any confusion created by the court's injunction. The president's EOs on federal funding remain in full force and effect and will be rigorously implemented. They're going to fire people. They're giving you advance notice. You're going to be gone. Now, you can take it with 8 months severance, or or you can take your chances. That's what he's doing. They ain't playing. So this is the way it goes. And why? Let's not forget, it's a product of spending. Now, don't let the Republicans off the hook. Some of them have overspent, too. Even Sean Hannity and Mark Levin admit that. For years and years and years, when we think about a $36 trillion budget that we have, the Republicans' hands ain't clean in all of this. Trump spent. W. Bush spent. H.W. Bush spent. Read my lips, no new taxes, and then put it forth more taxes. Reagan spent. It's not about spending because they all spend. It's who you going to spend on. What you going to spend on. Democrats and Republicans, they're all guilty. All of their hands are filthy in this $36 trillion deficit that we operate under. They're going to make changes. It's coming. That's the way that it goes. And if you are the Democratic Party, rather than give that old song and dance with your frivolous arguments about in regards to identity politics and woke culture and immigration and not even immigration, transgender issues, as opposed to LGBTQ overall issues, if you're going to do all of that, that's not what people care about when their wallets are being pinched, when eggs and milk and gas and bread and everything is expensive. They don't care. They only care when they're comfortable. They don't care when they're suffering. Get used to it. DEI. Oh, everybody's in an uproar about DEI. You know what my uproar was? I don't like the fact that you're acting like everything associated with DEI involves some incompetent people that weren't getting jobs based on their merit. But you're forgetting why the need for DEI was necessary to begin with, similar to why the Rooney Rule in the National Football League was necessary to begin with, similar to why affirmative action was necessary. If you hadn't been so insidious, so vicious, so inequitable in terms of how you treated other human beings that weren't white, those programs wouldn't have needed to be in existence. But that doesn't mean that the left didn't go overboard. In the aftermath of George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis by those police officers, mainly Derek Chauvin. And that they didn't use it as an opportunity to try to guilt the nation into voting for them, regardless of the incompetence and the tone deafness that they operated under. Everybody's hands are dirty. Everybody. The difference is Trump doesn't mind getting his hands dirty and dirtier. So yeah, you're right. This whole thing with the federal freezing has been somewhat mishandled, particularly in the public eye. And he had to be called on the carpet for it, and he had to backtrack a little bit to make sure that they dotted their I's and crossed their T's appropriately before moving forward with it at a later date. But make no mistake, he has sent the message. He ain't messing around. Now, the Democrats can get back to doing the job they were supposed to do, legitimately pointing out the flaws in his vision, moving forward, as opposed to trying to take us back. When you swear he's the one doing it, it's you two trying to get us back to a time where we fall for your frivolous nonsense instead of the issues that are really, really important to us.